Hello, and welcome back to Fires and Scheming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on with Suzerain. So last time out, we had a discussion with our wife about women's rights. We gave our orders to the secret police, and got yelled at by the military again, so that was pretty fun. Alright, so it looks like we don't really have anything else to go over here. So let's just head straight up to Agnolia for our trade negotiations. Sword and One's flight from Holster to Stallport took 3 hours, but went very smoothly. We were about to touch down. David left his seat and came over while Simon was enjoying his newspaper.
Looks like we're about to land, Mr. President.
I looked outside. I could see Helluland, the island in between Falks and Magnolia.
So many conflicts over a small piece of land. The island could barely sustain itself without outside help.
I don't blame them. It is in a very strategic position.
Certainly. If you have Helluland, that means you're in control of the whole Valkos channel. Now, I suspect it'll be one of the topics Mr. Van Horten will bring up as a bargaining chip. We must be careful. Helluland might be under the control of Agnolia, but the international community is yet to recognize it. For a good reason, too. Nobody wants to make an enemy of Falkland, especially because of the support of United Katana and CSP.
Me included. I wouldn't want to do anything to injure our relationship with Falkland.
I agree. We should try to do our best to stay in the middle ground.
Simon folded his newspaper, got it from his seat, and sat right next to us. Aside from the point of Hellion, we need to be careful with the additional requests. According to the deal that was negotiated so far, they want to sell us their steel for a higher price, and they're requesting easier access to our agricultural market. In return, they're promising cash flow investments, especially in the island region. It's not hard to guess why.
Precisely. Agnolian immigrants in our island region make a good chunk of the region's economy now. During the initial negotiations, they have brought up the topic of immigration many times. The fact that we've relaxed immigration laws will help tremendously. That's if we can shake hands on it.
The pilot made an announcement that the descent started. David and Simon went back to their seats. I took another look outside the window. I could see Stallport, the capital city of Agnolia. The large dockyards of the city and the canals appeared closer as our descent continued. Stallport was certainly a fitting name due to stall meaning canal. A couple minutes later, we finally touched down. The plane parked. I took a final look out from the window. The welcoming ceremony from Agnolia was waiting along the red carpet outside. After the guards made their way out, I exited the plane. I waved at the crowd that gathered. There were many camera flashes. I started to make my way downstairs. Prime Minister Van Horten was nowhere in sight. Instead, I was greeted by the Foreign Minister. After handshakes and a couple of photos, I moved to the car where Serge was waiting to make our way to the office of the Prime Minister.
Good day, sir. I hope the flight was comfortable.
Wouldn't he have been on the flight, too? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, yes it was. Thank you, Serge. I got in the car, and we made our way through the foreign streets. Our convoy was protected by Sordish and Agnolian guards in their vehicles. We began driving by the highway beside the port and saw dozens of dockyards and ships anchored. Some of the ships and machinery looked old. The city itself looked very grey and grim. The buildings had a touch of Rumberg's famous monarchian architecture, with a mixture of Sordish signature domes on the older ones. We were now on the main road to the office of the Prime Minister.
Looks like they are not too happy to see you, sir.
Serge pointed at the crowd that gathered on both sides of the street. It was a protest. They were shouting and yelling at our convoy. Some of them held signs written in Sordish. Swordland must pay its debts to Agnolia.
You know, I never knew Agnolians were so ungrateful. Not everyone sees a great leader like you every day.
There have been so many issues in Swordland, I don't know if I can call myself a great leader.
Sir, humility is important, but not in this case. They were always scared of Swordland's potential. Now they are afraid that a lion leads Swordland. They are afraid of you.
Convoy started slowing down.
We've arrived, sir.
The car continued through the gates while the security vehicles went the other way. We finally came to a stop in front of the door. Serge left the car and opened the door. I exited and began walking to the door with dozens of press and the Prime Minister were waiting for me. I saw the PM much more clearly as I neared the door. He was shorter than I thought.
Mr. President, welcome to Agnolia and to the beautiful city of Stallport.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's great to be here. He reached out for a handshake. The press surrounding us had been waiting for this moment. We shook hands and went for a hug, which was received well by the Prime Minister. The press went wild and took more pictures. He gestured to the entrance of the 200-year-old Parliament building. This way, please. We entered and pressed follows inside. I would like to present you with a gift as a sign of friendship between our countries. The assistant showed up immediately with a large glass box in her hands. It contained a single parchment inside. This here is one of the first treaties written between Solda and Agnolia. May it mark the renewal of our friendship today as well. This is an amazing gift, thank you. Our photos were taken again. I gestured at one of my retainers who's holding our gift to the PM. This always seems to be the right option, so I'll just go with it again. Our gift was an ornamented ceremonial sword made of Swordfish steel. Ah, an excellent specimen. This must be hundreds of years old. It looks like this is Swordfish steel as well. Very fitting, thank you. The cameras flashed once again. Let's go to my office. Follow me. I followed him, and we entered the office of the Prime Minister. It was a room of wooden, minimalist decoration. It was far more modest than I expected. When he sat down, he leaned back and made himself comfortable. Ah, sheesh. Thankfully, we would have done with the ceremonies. I was just about to say the same. I'm not fond of these either. It is one of the tougher parts of our job. He got up from his chair and moved over to the bar. There are many varieties of liquor. Would you like a drink, Mr. Rain? I wouldn't mind some Agnolia vodka. Ah, you know your drink. He poured the drinks and gave mine to me before sitting down again. A true gentleman. I can respect that about you, Mr. Horton. This is how I do things in Agnolia, Mr. Rain. I appreciate the kind words, but flattery alone won't swim me this day. First of all, I would like to say that I have been watching a recent changes to immigration policy. I am glad that you've decided to keep it relaxed. Immigrants are very important for beneficial economical development, and we believe that very much in Agnolia. It is reassuring to see Southern move into a more modern direction. Thank you. He took a sip from his vodka. So, tell me, Mr. Rain, is Solden a reliable trading partner to Agnolia? I mean, as long as Agnolia is a reliable trading partner. I can assure you we are. He paused for a moment. It was a good move to stop building that highway. Overall, this will positively affect our trade. Well done, Mr. Rain. I mean, I didn't do it for Agnolia, I did it for the people of Sortland. Of course, everything we do is for our people. Van Horton leaned back further in contemplation. So, what's it going to be? First of all, if we shake hands on it, this agreement is going to be really beneficial for both of us. You should be able to solve your recession in no time with the investments and money flow coming from us. And this is, as you know, on top of the reduced tariffs for trade between our countries. Of course, in return, as discussed between my people and your people before, you will allow us privileged access to your agriculture market. You will be buying steel from us for a higher price, which is a small price to pay, really. And this is the deal. What do you say, Mr. Rain? Cool, I accept. Excellent. Before we dive into the paperwork for the trade deal, I want to offer you another possibility. I would like to expand on a newly found partnership. We have regional forces like Romberg that have been opposing danger in both of our countries. I am of the mind that we must unite, so... By the powers bestowed upon me as Prime Minister of Agnolia, I am offering a military alliance in between Solden and Agnolia. What do you think? No, I don't... No, we don't want to do that because we're going to ally with Vogsland, so... Slorland isn't ready to go quite that far just yet. Ah, that is unfortunate. It would have been beneficial against the Rumbeck threat, however. Agnolia can stand by itself against any threat just fine. But there is another topic I'd like to bring up. As you know, Hellion has been long contested in between Agnolia and Vogsland. Those warmongers want to take back the island. You know how the international community has not recognized the rightful claim on the island, including Solden. Would it be good that Solden finally announces the recognition of Hellion as Agnolian territory? You're asking too much. Ah, it is understandable, but I won't push too much on the matter. We have achieved enough for today. Well then. He stood up from his chair. We must continue the official program. As you know, we'll pay a visit to our founder's grave for another ceremony. Afterwards, we'll move on to the state dinner. Cool, after you. As soon as we left the office, I briefed Simon and David on the outcome of the meeting. The rest of our state trip was full of fake smiles, handshakes, incredibly long ceremonies, and even longer meetings between our ministers and their counterparts. When we came to the end of the trip, the way back was mostly silent. I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when we touched down in Whole Sword. Cool. Alright, so it just says we successfully negotiated a trade deal. Looks like we got one report and a couple of newspapers here, so let's do that before we head down to Valen. Alright, from Lenkerg, rioters arrested. The protests and occasional looting of the past weeks has ceased in the city of Lenkerg. Lenkerg police have reported that the situation is now under control, and thousands of arrests have been made while quelling the situation. Fantastic. Alright. Let's see here. So from Whole Sword Post, new trade deal with Agnolia. A new trade deal between Swordland and Agnolia comes into effect on Tuesday. Agnolia Prime Minister Van Horten told reporters that Agnolians would get more from the new deal, which replaced the 20-year-old marketing trade agreement. Swordland will open its agriculture market to Agnolia with the new trade agreement. The deal will also see an increase in trade volume between the two countries and includes a slight price increase of Agnolian steel. We will continue to advocate for continued fair trade between our two countries in a relationship that has been extraordinarily beneficial to both Agnolia and Swordland, Van Horten said. Cool. And from The Economists, President Rain gives upper hand to Agnolia. As a result of the recent trade deal with Agnolia, we find it baffling how President Rain could give the upper hand to President Van Horten. Even though we've been in recession for some time, Swordland is a country with much more potential, a lot more investment, and a lot more prestige. Yet, it appears that President Rain has failed to play his cards right, resulting in a deal where we will end up paying more for Agnolian steel in return for not enough profit. It is hard to comprehend the reasoning behind accepting such a disadvantageous deal. President Rain has unfortunately fallen short of our expectations in trade negotiations. Cool, I don't really care what you guys have to say. Alright, and last up from Geopolitico. Hegel, Van Horten is playing with fire. Yesterday morning, Chancellor Volksen Hegel delivered a press conference in Helm about the escalating tensions in Helluland. During the press release, he said, Agnolia's unlawful occupation of the island will not stop us from doing whatever it takes to protect our people living in Helluland. He heavily criticized and condemned Prime Minister Van Horten, saying, we are dealing with an illegal occupation force which doesn't refrain from entering our territorial waters without asking our permission. Van Horten is playing with fire, and if he is not careful, he might get burned, said Hegel. Geopolitico will be watching the developments closely. Cool. Alright, let's have a country overview as well here. So recovered trade volume as an orange thing. In diplomacy, we've got this trade initiative, trade with Agnolia. Agnolia priority in the agriculture market, and a higher price steel imports from Agnolia. Both of those are orange. Which honestly sounds about right. It's not good, it's not bad, it just kind of is. Perfect. Alright. Well, let's sit down to Valen here real quick then. Swordland 1's flight from Whole Sword to Rokovitz took approximately 5 hours. Despite heavy turbulence, I managed to sleep a little. Along with Simon and David, we landed at the international airport of the capital city of Valen. Our aim here was to finalize the trade deal drafted between Swordland and Valen. Shortly after our plane landed, the door opened and the sun blinded me for a moment. I stepped outside. I saw the soldiers line up on either side of the red carpet. There must have been at least 100 soldiers. The marching band started playing, and the soldiers immediately saluted me. I should be polite and salute them back. At the bottom of the stairs, Victor Smolak was waiting for me, next to a military jeep with a few soldiers by his side. There were a few reporters on the side, waiting with their cameras. He was a tall man, almost as tall as me. He was wearing large sunglasses, and his attire was a regular suit, contrasting with the military attire of everyone else in the field. Mr. President, welcome to Rokovitz. He immediately motioned for an embrace. We hugged, and many cameras went off at the same time. He turned around for a couple of additional poses. Thank you for inviting us. Now that the pleasantries are done, let's go. We'll take the jeep for a tour. With another tune for the marching band, we moored the military jeep. He sat in the driver's seat, and I sat next to him. As we started speeding up, the soldiers saluted again. Victor Smolak saluted back. Alright, let's just go ahead and do the same thing. Why not? My security detail and Victor's security detail started following us immediately, along with a team of reporters.
We will first go to the city center to see the opening of a statue.
Sounds exciting?
This is an important occasion for Valen. I am sure you'll like it.
We kept making small talk about the flight and the weather until we started making our way into the city center. Whatever. On almost every corner, there were reporters taking photos of us. Oddly enough, every single street that we took seemed completely empty. Is Rucklovitz always this empty?
I had the locals close down their businesses because of your visit so that you can enjoy the city more. There we are.
We arrived at the city center. In the middle of a large plaza, there was a covered statue. Lots of people gathered behind fences, and they were waving both Swordland and Valen flags. Victor waved back at them.
My people have been very supportive of this visit, Mr. President. I am sure you're delighted to see.
As a man came close to the fences and started yelling at Victor. With my limited knowledge of the basic language, I understood the words Victor and murder. Almost instantaneously, 2 soldiers showed up from behind the man. He was taken away.
Thankfully, the sun is up. Today will be a good day for the review.
Yeah, let's get it over.
Very well, let's take our places.
We took our places from the statue. With a drum roll, the statue of Victor Smolak was uncovered. The statue was done pretty well, except that he was made more masculine. He was wearing a cloak and holding a sword in his hand.
Excellent statue, very lifelike. What do you think?
Yes, it's very good, very lifelike.
Glad you appreciate the art behind it. Join me for a walk.
I followed him through the streets. At every corner, more and more photos were taken. We stopped in front of a pastry vendor on the street.
Give me 2 strudel.
The man behind the stand smiled and gave us 2 strudels. I put my hand in my wallet and brought up some money to give to the vendor.
Hold up, your money doesn't count here. I got this.
He handed the money to the street vendor, and the cameras flashed again. Afterwards, we walked a short distance to the palace. Passing the gates of the palace, we made our way into the main building, made from ivory-colored stones. The old guard towers flanked the magnificent main building from both sides. The inside of the palace was very spacious, with a very large chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Grand staircases made from the same ivory stone had red carpets on them. On both sides of the upper levels, guards stood with the traditional outfits of the old Bezek kingdoms. We finally reached the office of the President of Valen. The door closed behind us. The interior boasted gold ornaments on the walls, ivory colors, and various jewels attached to different artifacts of old. As was customary in Valen, we sat down on the carpet.
Now we can talk about our trade deal.
Finally.
But before that,
he clapped his hands twice.
Bring the Keisha.
A few assistants immediately entered the room, carrying a large ornamented Keisha, a well-known smoky instrument originating from Valen. They immediately lit it up, and the room was filled with the smell of tobacco. He inhaled the smoke and handed me the Keisha. It was probably the highest quality tobacco I'd ever smoked. I handed it back. He took another puff, filling the room with more smoke.
So, Mr. President. That's too long. Can I call you Anton?
Sure, why not?
Anton, tell me, what do you really think about Rumberg?
A barking dog doesn't bite.
I wouldn't be so sure, Anton. I assure you their time will come.
Yeah, but regardless, I'd rather prevent further conflict in the region.
You know as well as I do, Anton. They are coming whether we like it or not. They are the aggressor, not us. For now, I have something else in mind.
I'm listening. He clapped his hands again. 2 assistants came in the room with a map of the border regions between Valen and Swordland. He pointed at the border.
Look. Bloods and the so-called BFF are causing problems for me in this region. I know they're a problem for you as well. I will not allow these traitors to exist in my border, so I'll hit them with all the might of Valen. These terrorists need to be destroyed. I call it Operation Bear Trap.
Okay, and what do you want from me? He grinned and lay back on the large pillow behind him.
Here's the deal. I'll give you the best trade deal in the region. You'll give me your assistance crushing the terrorists on both of our borders.
Yeah, I need specifics.
Sure. My spies have infiltrated BFF cells, and they found caches of KA-74, so we traced them back to Rumberg. This alone justifies my retaliation to protect my country. Worst of all, we also found that similar shipments are going to Swordland. Yes, Anton, you see, this is not just Valen's problem.
let's take a step back and talk about what you will get in return. I propose you a no-tariff agreement, co-investment projects, and oil. In return, you'll assist me in destroying the terrorists in my country. What kind of support do you need from me? Can't Valen handle it by itself? We can, but these vermin are good at hiding. What I want from you in return for all the money and the resources is a joint operation between our armies against BFF. I took a moment to think about it. Okay, so we're supposed to not participate, but just close the border. So let's negotiate Sordon's contribution to this operation. You are a tough one, Anton. Normally I wouldn't offer anything else, but I like you. Here is my final offer. When the operation starts, with or without you, there will be stragglers trying to cross into Sordon. We just want you to support the operation even if you do not join. Stop the terrorists from fleeing into your country and you'll have your deal. Simple, isn't it? So, what do you think? Deal. I knew I could trust you, Anton. Tonight we'll drink. He clapped his hands again. Drinks, dancers, music. A group of dancers and performers entered the smoke-filled room. As they performed their songs, we clinked our glasses to our newly found partnership while sipping the sweet Vasic liquor. The next day, I returned to Sordland with a hangover. Alright. I'm definitely not quite a big fan of doing it that way, but at the same time, I think we kind of had to. Alright, so looks like we're going to Whole Sword next, but let's check out the newspaper first. So from the Whole Sword Post, Sordland ratified a new trade agreement with Valen. Sordland ratified a new trade agreement and investment protection agreement with Valen. This is a significant development that shows a significant normalization of Sordish-Vasic relations after decades of troubles. At the most basic level, the agreements will support jobs and growth between the two nations and ensure that Sordland will be buying Vasic oil at a cheaper price. The agreements will gradually reduce most tariffs and regulatory barriers, create new opportunities for Sordish entrepreneurs to do business and invest in Valen. The negotiations also included a cooperation pact against the terrorist organization British Freedom Front. Cool. I got a whole bunch of things in the country overview. So we've got a tariff-free oil trade with Valen, which is a green thing, which definitely makes sense. Military, we've got Valen border defense. And in economy, increased trade volume, which is fantastic. Okay. That should go quite a long way towards helping to solve the recession here, I hope. But let's head back to Whole Sword here for a speech of the President on the reforms. I came to the Grand National Assembly of Sordland to deliver a speech regarding the new constitution and ask for the support of the Assembly before the upcoming vote. I walked quickly through the corridors, giving my greetings to people on my way towards the Parliamentary Hall. When I entered the hall, the Assembly was in complete chaos, with shouting and cursing between the parties. There was a heavy argument about a proposal made by an MP from the NFP. I took my seat inside the special area reserved for the ministers. Gloria was shouting from her seat at the center of the hall as she hit the gavel 3 times, with each strike heavier than the one before. Order! Order! I saw Kasara Keebner standing up from his seat and shouting towards members of the PFJP. Mr. Keebner, calm yourself. Show respect to the procedures of this assembly. Despite our efforts, the argument continued for a couple of minutes before everybody took back to their seats and finally went quiet. Mr. Keebner, next time, when I tell you to do so, either take your seats or leave the hall so we proceed with the procedures of this assembly and continue our duties. Some MPs from the NFP side shouted back at her in protest. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me to continue. She pointed at me. We have the President here with us today. He has asked to give an important announcement. The assembly fell silent. You have the floor, Mr. President. I walked to the stand as loud clapping started on the USP side. Honorable members of the Grand National Assembly of Sordland, I am here today to raise important questions regarding our outdated constitution. Let's see, which answer sounds better here? Let's go with this one. Our Constitution doesn't adequately define or respect the separation of powers and the balance between the branches. In order to strengthen our democracy, we must be brave enough to point out the faults of our Constitution. I continued. Therefore, we propose changes to the Constitution to prepare Swordland for a more democratic era. Applause came from ESP and PFJP seats. We will rebalance the branches of government to ensure a more democratic process. I focused on... let's focus on peace? Why not? The 29 Constitution was a product of a time of war. Now is a time for peace. As we must make peace between each other, we must strive for peace in the world. We need a more democratic constitution that will reflect the will of the people and flourish in the upcoming times of peace and prosper. We will make Swordland great again. Loud noises came from the ESP and NFP seats. I took a breath and continued. Ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, we must set aside our differences. Be part of a new era for Swordland. Join us and vote for our proposal. Let's write the future together. Let's just salute the crowd. I saluted the crowd. For democratic Swordland. The Assembly roared with all kinds of different reactions. The whole USP stood up and started applauding. Thank you for the speech, Mr. President. I walked back to my seat as many MPs asked to speak. Franz Richter was among them. Yes, Mr. Victor? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank Mr. President for his speech. We, the People's Freedom and Justice Party, stand in agreement with the need for a more democratic constitution. I would like to thank the ladies and gentlemen of the United Swordland Party for their more open attitude compared to past years. As long as Mr. President's words prove to not just be words, we will be behind this much-needed movement for change. We welcome this attempt. I ask Mr. President to share the final contents of these proposals as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Suddenly, Kasar Keebner started yelling from his seat. The President must have lost his mind to cooperate with the likes of you, Mr. Victor. You and PFJP are nothing but puppets of Western interests. Order! Madam Speaker, I know you are in agreement with me as well. Don't stand idly there while this administration is making deals with snakes. Undermine the integrity of Order! Mr. Keebner, how many times do I need to say you are speaking out of I demand to speak. Gloria gave him a stare. She looked annoyed. Very well, Mr. Keebner. Go ahead. Mr. President. He looked directly at me. The nationalist movement does not agree with your priorities, nor the way you're trying to implement them. The National Front Party will not stand with you on your new constitution. Let it be known that the NFP's concerns are not included in the so-called democratic reforms, and thus Mr. President has no right to claim them as such. We will stand our ground against any attempt to bring down our established political culture and national values. Thank you. Kasara went back to sleep, but the chaos in the assembly continued. Let's see. Do I want to speak, or do I want to just leave them to it? I don't know if it really makes a difference. I guess let's go and ask to speak. Yes, Mr. President. Talk to Mr. Let's just go with that. I just want to thank everybody for their comments. Alright, Mr. President. That was probably pointless, but it's okay. MPs kept shouting and responding to each other, creating a loud mess where nothing was legible. Order! Order! This topic is finished. We're moving on to our next topic. I slowly left the hall. The shouting could be heard from every quarter of the Grand National Assembly. Fantastic. Alright, that looks to be the end of the churn. But we have a couple of reports and a couple of newspapers, so let's take a look at those real quick. Alright, from Suzerain, Border Report. Defense Minister Joseph Lansing reports that the Valen borders have been closed and the divisions of the Third Army are ready for the operation. Cool. Whole Sword Reform Status. Lysian and Glad report that so far they've been able to get in total 142 signatures behind the proposal. Efforts are underway to increase the support and to reach out to necessary members to reach 150. We're pretty close, so that's pretty good. Alright, check out the papers. From the Whole Sword Post, Rain. Our Constitution doesn't adequately define or respect the separation of powers. President Rain has called on the Grand National Assembly of Sorlin to support the upcoming constitutional changes in his address in the Parliament. The President's address came after a series of meetings within the USP, which probably involved discussions about the new constitution. President Rain talked about the main points of the proposed changes and revealed that the current draft will be looked over again with leaders of the PFJP before it is proposed in Parliament. Our Constitution doesn't adequately define or respect separation of powers and the balance between the branches, said President Rain, pointing out the need for a new constitution. Cool. And from Geopolitica, Walker warns Volkslandian Navy over Helluland dispute. The tensions between Agnolia and Volksland keep climbing. The latest edition of the escalations happened yesterday on the Volgoslavian Channel, when the Volkslandian ships started advancing on the perimeter around the island. According to Agnolian sources, yesterday morning, the Agnolian battleship Van Gilben A-387 had intercepted a Volkslandian destroyer, Stanison, and warned them to move out of Agnolian waters. The Volkslandian captain did not respond to the communication, but both ships backed away from the scene after several hours of standstill. Seeing this event as Volksland putting pressure over the island, Arcasian President Dwight Walker warned the Volkslandian Navy, saying, "We will not tolerate any attempt to trigger an incident on international waters. I call upon Mr. Hagel. Pull back your ships immediately." Fantastic. Alright. So I guess let's check out the next journey here. Wealth of Nations. Alright, looks like we got a handful of things popping up here. But honestly, that feels like as good a place as any to go and call it for today. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.